Many have talked about the twisted origins of the Queen of the Stars in Abeloth, how she became this way and why she was never meant to be. But few have actually talked about what Abeloth actually means to the Force itself and her relationship to the Force wielders and the Mortis gods. Why is it that Abeloth is so appalling and twisted when the Mortis gods are not, as well as others that wield the Force? What is Abeloth's alignment in the Force as someone who has great power within the dark as well as the light side? Well, my friends, today we have the answer, and a revelation that the Force itself absolutely despises the creature of Abeloth, and yet how she's able to command such power in it nonetheless. To understand Abeloth, let's briefly go over the origins of the Ones of Mortis. Originally in Legends continuity, they were called the Celestials of Mortis, descendants of an ancient race that built the very foundation of the galaxy that we know today, and then eventually fled the galaxy for unknown reasons. It was said that the Celestials were the most powerful Force sensitives that the galaxy had ever seen, outclassing the power of those that would follow them in the timeline like the Jedi and the Sith. Their perception of the Force was also much different, something that we can see in the Mortis arc of the Clone Wars. Anakin accuses the Father, who represents balance, as being a Sith Lord. However, the Father responds that he is so much more than a Jedi or a Sith, and so too is Anakin, explaining to the Chosen One that his relationship to the Force itself was different than most beings that reside in the galaxy. The Father even says that they take forms that manifest through the Force itself, and that their physical forms and how they represent themselves to the living is not their actual true forms. Rather, the forms are the sides of the Force itself. Although the Ones of Mortis are not literally the Force, they are the physical manifestations of the living world of all of the aspects of it. Anakin Skywalker also had that potential to become a representative of the Force in the form of the Father or a keeper of balance, something that has likely now happened, and his transformation into Darth Vader and redemption as Anakin Skywalker necessary for his understanding of the wider aspects of the Force itself. When understanding Abeloth, the member of the Ones of Mortis that we need to take a closest look at is the Father. Abeloth's original intention was to become like the Father. As a mortal woman that was growing old, Abeloth became extremely paranoid at the idea of passing away and leaving her family behind. And the key points of the character of Abeloth is that she's motivated by foolishness, selfishness, destruction, but also, interestingly, a love for her family. The most tragic aspect of the Abeloth character is that it is that love for her family that ultimately creates the monster that we know today. The being that would become Abeloth was not a Celestial or a descendant of the Celestials. The intriguing part about this creature is she was never meant to represent any part of the Force or wield it to any great extent whatsoever. The Force has decided to manifest itself in the Ones of Mortis with the daughter, the son, and the father. But this was never Abeloth's destiny, and because of that, the Force itself never called upon her. The Father personified the Force in its pure natural state, the balance and keeper of the light and dark. Abeloth represents somebody who was never meant to touch this sort of extreme power, a wielder of the anti-Force, if you will. She literally enslaves the Force itself to her own command. Abeloth is so powerful that the Force in its purest form can reject her, and yet she can still dominate and control it. Unlike the Sun though, who was called to be the personification of the dark side, Abeloth has been fully corrupted by it. And though she also possesses elements of the light side, stemming from her emotions of love and wanting to create a galaxy where she is welcome, it is instead twisted and made into something evil and disgusting. Unlike even Anakin, Abeloth was never meant to wield this insane power. The reason she is so incredibly strong in the Force is she is literally the mirror to it. The Force represents everything that is natural, cosmic. As Yoda describes, all things are connected to the Force. It represents the very lifeblood and the death of the galaxy itself. The Force is the natural. The Sith use the Force to achieve the unnatural and seek to dominate it, but the difference between somebody like the Sith and Abeloth is that the Sith are still using the Force in a form that it is intended to be wielded as, the dark side, in order to keep balance. This is not how Abeloth wields the Force at all. Abeloth is the personification of a false, a detestable, twisted balance that was never meant to be. The Father explains that he uses the Son as a method to destroy, and the daughter as a method to create, as there cannot be creation without first destroying. There cannot be any life without death. One feeds into the other, and it is the father's job to ensure that one never outweighs the other one, because what could happen would be catastrophic. The father tells Anakin Skywalker that if the light or the dark were ever to grow too powerful in the galaxy, that it would tear the very fabric of reality. He says that he has created a prison on Mortis to house his son and daughter who are at constant war. But what's interesting about this is I do not believe that the son or daughter, if they were ever to escape Mortis, would be the ones that would bring upon themselves an apocalyptic event such as Ragnarok. However, just as in Legends continuity, Abeloth was able to escape the Sinkhole Station, a cluster of black holes, only when the Force was unbalanced. It was the very calling of the son and the daughter of Mortis to conceal and imprison Abeloth for all time. Unlike the son, who understands the concept of destruction in order to create and wanting to build something truly special, Abeloth does not think this way. Abeloth, never meant to wield the power at all, has been driven insane by it. She has no great understanding of the power that she wields, and therefore, she uses it only to bring chaos. If you think about it, the way the Star Wars universe is established, and what balance actually means, is not actually bad. Although they are polar opposites of one another, they work together in a state of harmony and complement the other's weaknesses. The most important part of understanding the very reality of Star Wars is understanding the truth of balance. In the living force, the light and the dark side act as counterweights for one another to hold the very fabric of reality in place, just like the balance is also achieved between the living force and the cosmic force. Abeloth is literally the personification of the imbalancer, somebody that controls, dominates, and imprisons the Force itself for their own insanity, not for a greater purpose and the structure of reality itself. That is why Abeloth is such an intriguing, terrifying, and unique character. She is not some fallen angel, some old war hero, one that was destined for greatness. Rather, she was destined for so much less, to simply serve as the temporary mother for the Celestials of Mortis. But in an effort to become something she was never meant to be, she drank from the font of power as the son had done, and bathed in the pool of knowledge as the daughter had, just as the father did to understand his children more closely. But because of this, and because balance had already been established and achieved, Abeloth became the great imbalancer of the Force, a literal enemy of the Force itself, the greatest personification of everything that the Force does not represent. Abeloth is not natural. This was not her original fate as the Force willed it, making Abeloth the greatest enemy of the Force itself. Light, dark, and balance. She is a creature of dreams and madness, an embodiment of chaos and insanity. She does not rule by structure or an understanding. That is why, only when the galaxy is plunged in an era where the Force itself is imbalanced, that her call can reach others. Most of the time, when this imbalance occurred and the Force itself was weakened, the son and the daughter of Mortis would return to imprison Abeloth again within the Maw. But due to their passing, the Force now calls to others, new guardians, to achieve a harmony between the light and the dark, the living as the cosmic, as the Force and reality dictates. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this aspect of the Abeloth character? Taking a look at what she truly represents within the lore. What are your thoughts on the Great Imbalancer, and what do you hope to see from Abeloth, the Queen of the Stars, in the future? As always, my friends, thank you so much for visiting the channel today, and may the Force be with you.